Oleaginous. Oleaginous. Do you know how to spell that? I was at school. I feel as if at school that came up a lot in English exams, with interpretations or spelling tests or that kind of thing. Obviously, a long time since I was at school. But if anybody, there's going to be a lot of talk about schools this weekend. Who went to the best schools? So if anybody for the best schools could let me know how that's spelled, just a word that popped into my head quite recently. I can't stop thinking about it. Now, as a Rangers supporter, it is of course my job to find a reason to dislike the Celtic manager. And no, just the very fact of them being manager of Celtic isn't enough. That's never enough. That's a strange thing about football fans, isn't it? When we're so prone to overreaction and being overly partisan and tossing around the word hate when we don't actually understand what hate actually is. But I think there's a kind of acknowledgement, an instinctive acknowledgement that football is a sport and you can't play football without opponents. There's a basic kind of respect there, so basic mutual respect. So you need to justify your petty hatred of all things opposition by finding something personal about them. Like, no, Neil Lennon, Molly Miley, Jimmy McGrory. I kind of think it. Do you know all this Dr. Joe Venglos? They probably something. They're in the public sphere, so there will have been something you can find. Go, I didn't like that. See that just proved that such and such. But I don't really like to go on about it because I know how it comes across. For example, being on the other side, like Walter Smith is the best person. Walter Smith, the best person in the history of persons. Walter Smith, just the best ever. And yet, because he's manager of Rangers, people who'd I never met him and I adore him. So it's just a different side of the same argument, really. But people who want to hate Rangers and can't just accept that, sometimes people that you don't support are actually okay. Need to find some reason. I've seen it coming up a lot of times. The favourite thing from opposition fans, horrible stuff, is the interview with Chick Young. Chick Young trying to interview Walter Smith after the defeat to AEK Athens, and folk horribly tossing that about as proof that Walter was no saint. That's your Walter. That's your hero for you're like what? Come on, it's this whole thing, this whole tactic that you get a lot in modern life of finding one thing that somebody did wrong and just hammering on and on about it, throwing a whole lot of OTT emphasis on one tiny thing and getting all the your followers to back you up on that and reducing it to a meme or something. No, Hillary's emails, and this is how. If you start believing this kind of stuff, this is how you end up with total scumbags in charge of half the Western world and the world going to shit. You know what I mean? All the people that have, all the times I was playing football, pub league football and five-a-sides and all that, I was always in the dressing room and see the amount of trans men that would come into our spaces in the dressing rooms, walking about with their vaginas out, because they hadn't had the operation yet, and just getting in our faces and trying to molest us and stuff like that. It's happening all the time, so that's why we concentrate on it. That's something that has got to be. So that's an argument in Parliament. Just build your political force round about something that happens very, very, very rarely. In that way, they won't think about the money that you're taking off them and the fact that they're getting, everything's much more expensive and everything's going to in shit. And I get rid of the European Court of Human Rights because that's going to turn your children into gay or lesbian, or when they don't want to be, it's going to make them go into a sex change operation, that kind of thing. You just get one thing and you hammer it really, really hard and you overexploit. And so the thing with Walter Smith, maybe he had that interview with Chick Young. Chick Young's tried to interview him after the AEK Athens game, and it was because he's a real person in the real world, and a very kind of combative business. Walter, he was a bit aggro, a bit sweary, reasonably calm, mind you, but he was using kind of interpersonal tactics there to put Chick on the back foot and give him a wee bit of a fright. So that was it. That's the only thing he ever did, as far as some people are concerned. So I'm trying not to do that. I don't like to do that. But for example, Brendan Rodgers, I've got my reason for not liking Brendan Rodgers. I got that straight away. 2016-2017 season, Rangers are back in the top flight. and Celtic giving us a really hard time. Celtic on the way to winning the treble, undefeated domestically all season. That Celtic side, Brendan Rodgers, his first season as Celtic manager, and we go to Parkhead late on in the season, and we're getting beat, and then we equalise through Clint Hill. I bought Clint Hill a pint for scoring that goal. 5 minutes to go or something right towards the end. Clint Hill scores in his only season at Rangers. He equalises. It was a heart and hand night at the Loudon at Ibrox, and my mate Robert just got us a ticket for it, and it was like Clint Hill. I thought I'd better get a pint for that goal that brought so much relief and joy. But the problem was Celtic then had to lay siege to our goal because they hadn't dropped points, they hadn't lost or drawn to anybody all season. They'd beat everybody from Scotland that had played at Parkhead that season. They wanted to keep their 100% home record, as well as just wanting to beat Rangers. So they laid siege to our goal, and there was a couple of incidents where they're throwing themselves to the deck, they're genuinely falling to the ground, and one of them was near Clint Hill, or maybe the ball kind of hit his hand, something like that. It could have been a penalty. Everybody's squealing and shouting about it, of course. But the penalty wasn't given. Rangers survive. I mean, it'd been a terrible season all round. But we'd taken away Celtic's 100% home record. And at the end of the game, you see Brendan Rodgers going out onto the park and he's chatting away to Clint Hill. And they're having a laugh, I don't know if they're doing that thing where they cover their mouths because the cameras are on them. But I was thinking, Clint Hill, he's been all over the place. A veteran at that point. He'd be the QPR. Maybe he's actually worked with Brendan Rodgers at some point in time. They look quite chummy. They're chatting away. They're having a laugh. I thought, there's no skin off Celtic's nose, and it doesn't mean our season's anything less than rubbish or very testing. So it's going in perspective. And then the post-match reactions, the interviews. It was on Sky, and I don't know if it was Luke Shanley or whoever is talking to Brendan Rodgers. And he wasn't happy about the fact that they dropped 2 points. And he said, and I was talking to Clint Hill, and he said he was really lucky to get away with that. It was a penalty. Clint Hill's just told me, that it was a penalty, and they were really lucky to get away with that. Now, there's no rule that says you can't share on national media a conversation you just had, in good faith with a fellow professional, after the game on the pitch. There's no rule that says you can't do that, but that was So, San Mamés last night, I know, I saw it, Athletic Bilbao, Manchester United, I know exactly what you're thinking. Man United's third goal was very similar to Marcel Desailly's goal for Milan in the 1994 Champions League final in Athens against Barcelona. Wasn't it the fourth goal when they won 4-0 that night? Milan, it was a whole thing where the midfield gets really compressed and they're right on top. It was at the point where Barcelona were trying to kick the shit out Milan because they're really upset that they conceded 3 goals in a game they were supposed to win, and they were trying to put the boot in, take a bit of petty revenge, and Milan were like, well, that's going to be even easier for us. It would be Vladimir Boban and Dimitri Albertini, I think, were kind of in the mid, right on top of them, and Big Desai, he comes battering through. It's just that same wee ball that just gets poked out of the kind of melee, and Desai runs through and goal. He curled it into the top corner. I think Fernandez kind of went bottom corner last night. It was very, very, very similar. And I spent, 2 hours last Thursday trying to explain why there was no UEFA conspiracy to get Athletic Club into the Europa League final. It just didn't even make sense. Why do you want to get the host into their own European final? I was telling you that. It took me 2 hours to explain it in the space of 5 minutes last night. UEFA demonstrated that there is no pro-Athletic Club conspiracy. It's just an anti-Rangers conspiracy, clearly, in this season's Europa League. Now we're not into that. I'm only joking. No way. It's just UEFA just demonstrated last night that it's down to the referees. It's down to the officials. People who hate VAR, they still want things. They want to go back to the old ways of things. Well, the old way of things was really unpredictable, and that's what you got last night as well. That bit of subjectivity is still there. Vivian, same player, same end. Not even the same foul, really. Should have been punished the same way. It should have been a penalty. Should have been a red card for Vivian. For us, 2 weeks prior, but it was a red card, and it was a penalty to Manchester United last night. Red card for Vivian. But I think the foul on Dessers was, it was more easily demonstrated by the fact that he ripped his shirt. But even Barry was saying the day, I think that the kind of howling, martyrdom, victimhood stuff that the Athletic Club fans were showering on the game right up to half time and into the second half. That's the kind of stuff we don't want. That Rangers just don't do that kind of thing. We shouldn't be doing that. So that demonstrates why he's got to take these things on the chin. Looking off that this weekend. So how you doing, folks? This is your Fatec. Rangers are trying to win the first home game in 7, trying to get their first league win in 4. But we're trying to get our third straight Old Firm win, and maybe we're going for our 4th Old Firm game where we score 3 goals. We might actually need more than that. Preview pod coming to you in association with Gersnet. Check out Gersnet tonight. It's 9 o'clock, the Old Firm preview pod, and it's going to be John and Colin, so that'll be a cracking pod. Get on to Gersnet and check out what the boys have got to say. And sponsored by that, and also sponsored by somebody. Could somebody tell me what age Yamin Lamal is? What age is Yamin Lamal? No, the Barcelona fella. The fella plays for Barcelona. It never gets mentioned at all. It's quite a simple stat, and yet TNT Sport didn't seem to want to mention it more than 2,800 times throughout the course of the game. They'll net a fantastic 3 each draw. I didn't think I'd be that interested in Europe this week. I thought it was a bit harsh this midweek after Rangers going out the previous one, but nah, I sat down and I watched the games and I quite enjoyed them. And Inter, at no point in that game were Barcelona winning, and yet it was, oh god. But when Inter scored the 2 amazing goals that they scored to go 2-0 up, there was kind of, oh, these are great finishes and all that. And unfortunately, Ali, who is a naturally enthusiastic personality, but has obviously been told by the executives who've just listened to the focus groups, the punters that we can't get through the door, the floating voters, the ones that might watch EastEnders instead, that need it all reduced to something kind of simple for them. Guys like me, they've got us on board. They like it when Ali gets kind of worked up, they like it when Rio Ferdinand gets worked up. But he seems to be trying to get on board with it as well in a kind of fake way, just more, I don't know, they're more like kind of cheerleaders at a pep rally than actual commentators. Lamine Yamal's a fantastic talent, scored a wonderful goal, hit at the woodwork a couple of times, and he's 17 years old. 17 years old, Lamine Yamal. 17 years old, Lamine Yamal. 17-year-old Lamine Yamal. So when he actually scores a goal, to pull it back to 2-1 for Barcelona, who were never leading at home in this game, he pulls it back to 2-1 against an Inter side who've got injuries and suspensions. Got the 36-year-old Henrik Mkhitaryan on the park, who, by the way, was the only guy on the park who'd actually ever scored in a European final. He scored against Manchester United in the Europa League final back in 2000. There's a wee coincidence there, 2017. But he scored for Manchester United, against Ajax in the 2017 final in Stockholm, where one of the semi-finals was taking place last night, but not at the same stadium. The Conference League semi-final, Djurgårdens. But it was just going to shut up about it. When he actually scores the goal, Lamine Yamal, it suddenly became Lamine Yamal, the 17-year-old with the blonde mane. It's just like getting really indecent. He's kind of middle-aged guy, like the commentator. I can't remember the guy's name, but he was coming. So you can hear Rio Ferdinand going, "All right, we're getting worked up here about Yamal. I better." They jump on board. Like, this is what we're doing. This is like the USP of the game has been established before the game, and the actual action on the pitch has got nothing to do, with what the commentators are going to react to. It's just we're here to see Yamal scoring. Oh, they're still getting beat. Yeah, Yamal. So Rio Ferdinand goes, if you don't get a Yamal, everywhere you go in this city, says the commentator, everywhere you go in this city, all you can see is pictures of Yamal. It's pictures of Yamal. You can't get anybody else's shirt. If you're going to get a replica shirt, it's got to have Yamal's name in the back. So Rio Ferdinand's like, I better get in the back of this. It's physically impossible for somebody. Rio Ferdinand has won the Champions League as a player. He's played in Champions League finals. Alan McCoist was a goal away for the final, as in 92, 93. The first Champions League, the guys that have played that much football, got that much experience, it's physically and psychologically impossible for them to be consistently excited by every single match they attend. Even as a commentator, there comes a point you've got to get worn out. I've seen this kind of thing before. Oh my God, no, we've got to get excited, or else the folk that get Domino's pizzas and drink Budweisers will nae watch. So they go, what's amazing. So Rio Ferdinand's like, my 4-year-old's going to 2-foot me. If I don't come back for this trip with a Yamal shirt, my 4-year-old's going to 2-foot me. And just I was thinking, that's total, just hilariously bad. Rio, the commentator, he's got 13 years to get as good as Yamal. Is he 17, mate? Is he 17? What age is he? And Inter, I like Inter. Remember, Inter's the first team I ever saw in Europe. First time I ever saw Rangers play in the 84-85 UEFA Cup, and of course Inter Celtic's opponents, their most famous game, 67 European Cup final, and then they beat Celtic in the 72 European Cup semi-final on penalties the same night at Ibrox. Rangers are beaten Bayern Munich. So there's that 67, 72, a good association. And we beat them 3-1. We were 3-0 down for the first leg in the San Siro that night. But we beat them 3-1 at Ibrox, my first ever European game, and really fond memories. And obviously fond memories for Celtic, but we drew one each with them in the 2005-2006 Champions League, the only time we ever progressed from a Champions League group stage, and Interrank were already through, so we're on the stadium together. I've seen Inter in the Milan derby, drawn one each with Milan. I went over to Derby della Madonnina back in the 90s. I don't support Inter or anything like that, but I got real respect for them. And what they did last night is a beautiful pragmatism. Sort of last night, Wednesday night, Tuesday night, Wednesday night. It was Arsenal on Tuesday night. It was really great, and yet they're getting absolutely zero credit for it. It's all about Lamine Yamal. I hope they pump Barcelona in the second leg. Yes, and I can segue from that into Rangers and Celtic. Don't worry about it, because Rangers and Celtic this season have both played in European competitions. It's now totally sorted in terms of there's a hierarchy. You never really knew with the Cup Winners' Cup and the UEFA Cup which one was supposed to be the secondary competition to because it kind of fluctuated second to the European Cup. But now it's pretty much Champions League is the top. It's the blue livery. It's got the blue bunting. It's, second is the Europa League. It's the orange bunting, and the third one is the Conference League. Third best is the Conference League, and it's green. The green livery. I don't make the rules. That's UEFA. They decided it. So Rangers and Celtic this season have both in the group stage of European competition had draws away to the winner of the previous season's next one down competition. That's the only reason their opponent is in that group stage, is because they won the competition, the lower down competition, the previous season. Celtic went to Atalanta, who were the Europa League holders. They went down the Champions League and they drew in Bergamo, and Rangers went to Piraeus to play Olympiacos, who won the Conference League last season. That's the reason they were in the Europa League, and we drew over there. And both Rangers and Celtic have gone out of their respective competitions in the knockout stages to the hosts of the final of that competition. Bayern Munich are going to host the Champions League final, and Athletic Club Bilbao will be hosting the Europa League final. And they went out a couple of rounds later in European competition, but I'm just angry because I'm not going to get, because of the European semi-finals, we're not in the European semi-finals. I'm just relieved that we're going to get a chance on Sunday before it gets too indecent to pay our respects to the late Pope. So I mean, I just watching the games and they're having them. Come on, that's one thing we missed out on. Imagine that. Imagine we played Roma or Lazio or something like that in Rome, and they're trying to have the silence for it, and there's 10,000 bells. That would have been good. But we'll get a chance to do that on Sunday, I'm sure, if there's any justice in the world. So we're 14 points in front of Hibs, I think 17 points behind Celtic. I've not really checked that recently. It feels about right. Oleaginous, is it Oleaginous? Oleaginous? Am I spelling it wrong? It's kind of greasy. It means kind of greasy and sneaky as well. Personality, but also any viscous kind of fluidy stuff. Is Oleaginous? So it's one of the wee targets. One of the wee targets is just to try and get ourselves closer to Celtic in first than we are to whatever team is going to end up in third. But basically, Barry's saying today it is not a dead rubber. It is in terms of the league and all that. It's not going to change anybody's league position, Rangers or Celtic's. Or any of the clubs. Well, it's not going to change Rangers or Celtic's league position. So it is a dead rubber, but we know what Barry means. There is no such thing as a dead rubber. This is kind of part two, if you like, a preview pods for the Old Firm game. I did one on Tuesday where I was kind of coming down after party, really bad party at Paisley. I did a podcast about that, dealing with the after effects of the terrible draw in Paisley on Saturday, and then just kind of segueing into the Old Firm game, building up towards that. And I thought I was doing quite well until I realised the moment when I was actually uploading that pod, when I finished recording it, I just uploading. I think that's the exact moment that the cartel, sorry, the consortium was arriving at Ibrox. They were walking around, the portico, the famous portico under the Copland and under the Brimlin. It seemed like, I hope it's so the porter cabin that is their ticket office. If you're going to, just get a new ticket office. Going to get it, a proper ticket office, like a porter cabin next to some, actual portaloos. Just get it as a, like it used to be, a kind of nuclear shelter in the basement of the old Edmiston house. Get us something like that, Never mind whacking Polly for ratting at the old man. Make that first thing in your list. New ticket office. So it was quite. I knew it was an American kind of consortium with some other nationalities involved. I did not know it was Jack Nicklaus, Arnold Palmer, Lee Trevino, Gary Player, and Sevi Ballesteros. It's a new cast. The new charter customers on below deck govern that kind of golf casual, yacht casual. Yeah, businessmen, middle-aged businessmen. It's not a good. I did not realise also that Gertrude Stein had a son. Gertrude Stein and Alice B. Toklas. Well done. Yeah, he's going to be involved. Greta Steinson. That's a terrible, not even a literary joke. It's just a really bad joke there. But he looked a bit of a unit. Obviously, the ex-player. He's been involved with this consortium, so he's going to be in there. But it was quite a thing to see them kind of. Walking round trying to find where I do my post-match reaction pods, just outside the back of the Copland or the back of the Brimlin. And I think if you're going to leave a tip, guys, for the crew, could you just make it a reminder that season ticket renewal is up on Monday? Season tickets must be renewed by Monday, the 5th of. Oh no, wait a minute, that's what you were doing. Just that's a photo op was making sure we get the 49ers at Ibrox. Maybe we'll get a game. Maybe we'll get the old gridiron. Maybe we'll get an NFL game. They did that in London. The Spurs have got them as well. It wasn't just Wembley. I think Spurs got one, didn't they? Because it's built for that, the new Spurs stadium. But Ibrox is good. It's good. We had the Sevens at the Commonwealth Games, the Rugby Sevens, so it's probably the same thing. But that'd be good. I've seen 3 MLB games, but I've never actually seen. My name's Alec Anderson. When I was just a baby, my mother told me, son, always be a good boy, don't ever talk tough about guns. But I heard a lot of football supporters singing a song about Brendan Rodgers getting shot in his sleep with a bullet from the IRA. And I said, Mummy, what must he have done to make his own supporters talk about him that horrible kind of way? So it was press conference day today. Barry was kind of dodging questions again about whether he's going to get the job or not. I think it's pretty clear he's not going to. Saw the performance. The past doesn't count. He wasn't having it that because we'd won the previous 2 Old Firm games, home and away. All that was scored 3 goals against Celtic at Hampden, Ibrox, and Parkhead in consecutive games. Has that ever happened before? I need to get into the record books and give that a proper check. It's quite a run we're on. But because that was getting levelled at him today, you're on a good run against Celtic. No, past doesn't count, doesn't it matter? And he also didn't care about the performance, although he's gutted at the team, basically, yet again, after the poor performance at Paisley. The whole talk of instructions not being followed, they just don't listen. That was a quote he was given the sidelines inadvertently at Paisley last Saturday. He spoke to players about this week, and it had better change. Somebody says, you think it's going to change this Sunday? It had better change. They had better take my instructions on board. So Barry's just doing what he can. These players, I just hope they haven't checked out. Barry's doing what he can to get them G'd up for this one, although they shouldn't really need G'd up for an Old Firm game. He's very positive about the takeover. It's needed, and he's looking forward to it getting signed off. And kind of subtly, he talked about meeting to Kevin Thelwell, their new sporting director. He was impressed by him. He briefly met the consortium, but he was too busy dealing with the players at the time. He had training to do to have any chance to really chat to him. It's clear Rangers as a club, as a quote from Barry, Rangers as a club have to get ready for the new season. Is excited as a Rangers supporter at this potential new investment, hoping the deal gets signed off with the new consortium, because Rangers need this coming. It was subtly unsubtle, just saying he's now talking as a Rangers supporter, kind of slowly extricating himself I think, from the prospect of him being the manager who is going. He was talking about you have to hit the ground running as soon as this season ends. Pre-season practically starts. That's not an exact quote. That's me ad-libbing there. But in that, he was not talking about the we's and the. He wasn't doing the pronouns. You've always got to watch the pronouns. It's like Barry is just here to the end of the season. I don't know if the draw at Paisley has decided that for himself or he's been told that by Kevin Thelwell or Patrick Stewart, but it doesn't sound like he's even tried to pretend that there's a chance of him being Rangers manager next season. I might be reading too much into that, but not a dead rubber, says Barry. And we need to give Celtic a reminder that we're always going to be here. Basically, I think Chris Jack, I'm not sure, I couldn't quite make out the voice properly. We all know Chris Jack's voice well, but I couldn't hear it properly. I think it might have been him that asked, does it mean as much to the squad as it does to you this game? And that was a very, very pertinent question. I thought that's what we're all worried about. We know how much it means to Barry, but it seems to be, he's very genuine and very convincing, obviously, and he's passionate. He just lives Rangers. He just is Rangers, Barry Ferguson. And I think most of us feel more sorry for him than we are angry at him when Rangers have been slipping up of late. And I think that's the main problem here is, are the players listening to Barry Ferguson, because they would need to turn around that pile of piffle they put in at Paisley. Okay, we'll go into the fun stuff first straight away. I'm hoping we're going to do the, I must admit, I'm not hoping, but I'm preferring us doing the 3-4-1-2 kind of setup again that we had at Parkhead. We won there, although there's a couple of, there's no Yilmaz. Ridvan Yilmaz is out, obviously, so that's a huge miss for us. He's played the last two games, the last two times we've beaten them. Once at right back and once, I think, as a left wing back at Parkhead. So he's been really good against Celtic of late, Ridvan, but he's not going to be involved. I'm going to go for the 3-4-1-2, and my team would be, Liam Kelly should remain in goals as far as I'm concerned. Wasn't he at his best at Paisley, but didn't do anything horrendous. There's talk of Balogun. Obviously, that was a big kind of injury news that Liam Balogun is wearing a mask, but he might be okay after his small operation on his fractured cheekbone. So hopefully Big Leon's back. I would want Balogun, Proper and Suter as well, three centre-halves. Nsiala, I don't know. Celtic aren't as kind of physically bullying in that area of the park. That's not the real kind of tactics from what I can remember the couple of times we've played them. So the 4 times I've played them this season. But I still think Nsiala, getting bullied all over the place twice by St Mirren now to costing us goals every time. I just don't think he's got it, the young man. Not yet anyway. But if he's got to step up, he's got to step up if Balogun can't make it. So I would go Kelly, Balogun, Proper, Suter, Tav, Hefty, Raskin, Barron, Diamandi, Cherny and Egaman. I don't think that's what it will be. I would have, obviously, Tav and Hefty as my wing-backs, and they've got Raskin and Barron. For me, it'd be Connor Barron sitting in there next to Nico Raskin to make a 4 really in midfield. I don't know if Bailey Rice has done enough for Barry to want to pick him for an Old Firm game, but maybe there's a chance Bailey Rice would come in there and sit beside Raskin. I want Diamandi pushed forward in a 10 position again. Scored twice against Celtic. Scored against Hampden, scored against Parkhead, Diamandi. And I would have Cherny. Cherny has to play, but I would have Egaman instead of Dessers, but I think it will be Dessers instead of Egaman. I wouldn't be bothered if it's Egaman and Dessers playing, but then you're then looking at Cherny or one in midfield. I can't see Barry going for that. I can't see him going for starting with Egaman either. I think it will be Dessers who starts. But for me, I would want the team to be Kelly, Balogun, Proper and Suter as your centre-half, Tav and Hefty as your wing-backs, Raskin and Barron also in there, making a 4 with the high wing-backs, Dio is 10, and Cherny and Egaman up front, which is going to be Cherny kind of sitting a bit deeper, I would imagine, or going beyond Egaman and pulling it back to him. But if he's going to pull it back to him, they should pull it back to Dessers, because Dessers likes to have the ball pulled back for the back. It's Danilo. A lot of chat about Danilo because he's scored a couple of times against. He's also scored against Hampden and Ibrox this season, but doesn't seem to be a favourite of Barry's. So it'll be interesting to see where he is. Yanis Hadji, I wouldn't be bored if Yanis was in the team either. He's scored against Celtic obviously this season and does like a bit of a battle. Yanis, he's up for the big games. He's up for most games, Yanis. He does give it, and you need players who are going to give their all in this kind of match. Bajrami, I know he's way off it. There's games he just disappears from, but he scored against Celtic at Hampden this season, and I think he's a bit like the team in general. He will turn up. He'll turn up in a big game. Well, no turning up in the rest of them. The unpleasant stuff. Let's deal with the opposition. I see Jota is out for 69 months. Maybe that's a kind of judgment from God and a self-proclaimed freedom fighter. You know, a guy standing up for the poor and the oppressed, who then went to Saudi Arabia to take money off a horrifically theocratic dictatorship, but and then come back. But no, he's not playing, so he's a decent player. So that's good news for us. He scored against us as Jota. He's not been great against us this season though, but this is the problem. Celtic probably going to turn up. And then, unfortunately, today I made the mistake of turning on to Sky Sports News just at the point where I think it was Luke Shanley had finished and Auchenhowie talking to Barry, and I just turned it on at the very point where he said to him, the Guards of Honour. Now, what about the Guard? There's a lot of talk about the Guard. There isn't. It's you. It's the media that's talking about Guards of Honour. You know, it's a wind-up. It's an old firm game. Wally Gray was a guy in the Stevenson Masonic supporters bus. When he was, I don't know what age he was. I think he was actually in his 70s. No, you're a kid. You think everybody who's over 40 is ancient. But he's a lovely guy, lovely fella. He's on the committee and all that, really active in the sports club. But I got his ticket a couple of times for Old Firm games at Ibrox because he didn't go to Old Firm games. He just stopped going. And I'm like, oh my God, he goes to all the games, doesn't he go to Old Firm games? They're the big ones. They're the ones as a Rangers support, you want to go. But now, as I get closer to Wally's age, I realise why. He wouldn't want to go. It's just so depressing at times, the pish that goes on when the media's trying to wind folk up to do something stupid. Work us into a frenzy, find more pettiness, and of course, so Barry was getting asked about the Guard of Honour. And I think Barry, he said it at the press conference as well, the actual sit-down press conference, he said this thing, he didn't know, he couldn't remember a Guard of Honour thing being done before, and that's wrong. It has been, I know, I can't remember any more specific instances of the Guard of Honour other than Livingston. That one sticks in my mind. Livingston, 55 season, we went to Livingston midweek after having won the league. I don't know how soon after, because we won the league really early that season, and we went along there, and Davy Martindale, he had the Livingston players doing the Guard of Honour. I don't know if anybody else did it. I don't know if Aberdeen did it in the last game at Ibrox or something like that. Perhaps a bit easier when there was no fans in the stadiums during that season, but there definitely has been instances of the Guard of Honour being given. Now, I don't remember Rangers doing it for Celtic or Celtic doing it for Rangers, and I'm, in the space of my lifetime, we've both won plenty of leagues, plenty of league titles, plenty early for this to have arisen before. I don't remember it, but Barry just kind of you can see what he's meaning. He certainly won't remember it. He's no like a fat anal kind of pseudo anorak that sits and memorises wee bits of games, because he's trying to forget the last All Firm game, because he wants to forget games. He just wants to get the next one. The focus is on the next one. So you can see Barry's he's been genuine if factually incorrect about saying he doesn't remember there being Guards of Honour before. And then we go across straight away to Lennoxtown, and there's it's Oleaginous, Oleaginous. It means stuff oozing. It's an unpleasant thing that's described. It's a really good one. I can't remember. But we go over to Lennoxtown, and Brendan Rodgers gets asked, and I'm sitting going, all right, Jota's no playing. Oh, that's quite good. But I'm thinking to myself, well, Celtic, they clinched the league title by winning 5-0 at Tannadice. Now, we won both our games at Tannadice this season, but it was 3-1 and 1-0. And they get into the Scottish Cup final, setting themselves up for a treble by beating St Johnstone 5-0. I blew away 5. Even good results against St Johnstone, but we're not blowing away like that. Even at Ibrox, have we? Did we? There was Ross County, we beat 6-0 at Hampden. So really impressive. So they're back on form. Celtic, they'll be up for this. And then the guy, of course, asks him the thing about the Guard of Honour, and he's doing the whole thing where he's trying to be, I don't really care, but then talks about it for about 5-10 minutes, and the line that he comes up with was, what was it? It's a chance for the teams who've come up short to show some humility. And he's talking about it's been a tradition in these isles. So he doesn't want to say Britain. Because that's Britain. It's been, and he was talking about the game against Rangers, the Rangers game. He's no mention the Old Firm And this is while he's also reinforcing the fact that we got from the last two post-match interviews after the last two Old Firm games that Celtic basically lost them because we're so far ahead in the league. Technically you could see that as being unsporting. We weren't trying. Once you get beat, it's because we weren't trying. And here he was telling us, he's at the wind-up, Brendan. The Huns will be raging. The Huns will be raging. Well done, Brendan. Fantastic. I think humility is what victors are supposed to display. But I think maybe if you've been involved in the never defeated, always cheated kind of mindset for so long, you don't really understand how to be decent anymore. Etiquette and I think acts of respect and all that, manners. I think that's kind of stuff that I was saying earlier, that life's true kind of scumbags hide behind them. You go to weddings and stuff like that, there's folk at it. Because they know nobody wants to say anything or do anything to ruin the wedding for folk. There's always folk being needly and what. It's that kind of, and they'll use, you're supposed to do this at a wedding, you're supposed to do that. Folk that are really heavily into etiquette don't realise it's different from manners. Manners is a way of behaviour. It's a genuine, a kind of warmth, making people feel. But I think you're supposed to be, you don't demand what to the defeated. I just felt as if it was bow down before me, says Brendan. It's very creepy. Very kind of, especially a man in charge of a club that was set up to help the needy. I think when you are being mannerly or showing a kind of courtesy to somebody, you get to a point, if they're going to exploit it, you need to know how it's going to be received. And if it's going to be seen as an act of weakness or like that, then you can't. There comes a point, you just can't go ahead, you can't do it. But I don't know. I can't do anything about the fact Brendan Rodgers is like this. It's an embarrassment to Celtic, no me, and looking for football to put lowlifes in their place. I'm not joking. I'm only joking. He's at the wind-up. He's been a bit naughty. He's been a bit cheeky, and he's at the wind-up. But looking for football to sort out the wind-up merchants is that's a pipe dream. It never works. Look at the number of trophies Scott Brown's won. But I think it does display a huge kind of character flaw that is there for the exploiting when things go wrong for Rodgers and Celtic, as they have been the last couple of games against us. He's obviously playing to the galleries, the folk who wanted him shot in his sleep, a bullet for the IRA when he left last time. But these are the kind of people who need all their toys all the time, and the minute you don't give them everything they're wanting all the time, then they'll be throwing you off the very galleries. So we've got to go out there and try and use this. I think it's the Scott Brown stuff. Let's go out there and find a way to wind Rangers up. Get some players sent off. They're getting players sent off this season. Go out there and give them a proper pasting. No doubt about it. They're not seen as a dead rubber either. I'm not going to go to Celtic fans here. Obviously, this is actually club policy from Celtic. It's a Peter Lawwell FC stuff. I mean, we've all met people in life, and my least favourite kind of person in life, it's not to do with what team they support or anything. That kind of getting in your face. Or CMD who does that thing. Well, it's a kind of real. I'm actually so fat. I think that's why I've got so fat. Subconsciously, I never want to be able to employ that expression that just makes me want to kill. People go about waiting for something bad to happen to you. Folk will come up, say, "Oh, I heard I had a holiday that fell through." And I was telling folk, "Oh my God, what a nightmare! The holiday. There was a strike on it and put in the air traffic controllers, and the holiday fell through at last minute. So we had to nip down to Blackpool for a caravan or something. I can't remember what I was talking about. It was there's some folk like, I heard your holiday fell through. And you're like, fucking hell. Didn't he realise? You get to know there's a certain type of person that goes about not only wanting bad things to happen to you all the time, but wanting to get in your face and let you know that I wind up merchant. See, if you don't like me, stay away from me. Life's too short. I mean, if you're any kind of adult, about death. You just want it. Life's too short. I just want to be surrounded by people that at least have the decency to pretend they like me, at a certain level, But these folk who actually actively want to be in your face and all this. That's maybe why I shouldn't be a football fan. The Schadenfreude thing. I'll do it at a safe distance, and I'll do it on a podcast. It's a Rangers podcast, so if you're not a Rangers supporter, don't come on, and then you won't be offended. If you do, it's your own fault. But this trying to get in folks, because I'm on the media, mainstream media, and folk, I don't like that. I don't like it in life either. You tend to find they're the very kind of person who will, obviously, living and dying by their own, tiny little ski and do, but they'll be really easily offended. It doesn't take a lot to make them. And when they are offended, it's meltdown stuff. It's a disgrace. It's a conspiracy. The world's against them. It's all the clubs in the top flight voted to have them expelled from the league. Oh no, that wasn't it. It's that kind of thing. So it's there to be exploited. I think we're seeing a wee hint of what's going to happen. Again, it's getting ratcheted up. We're getting Celtic back to the way we. I don't like them. I never like them behaving like this because it kills the sport. It's like nakedly saying we will burn down the sport rather than lose at it. But that's when you know you've got them worried. And I think we've got Brendan Rodgers worried what he's just setting up for his hope. He's trying to do a wee bit of shit stirring, and then if things don't go according to plan on Sunday, well, it's a bit strange that we can win the domestic treble and play really and do so well against Bayern Munich. All that in the Champions League, we can't beat a Rangers team who finished like 15 points behind us. The officials must be. I think it's the start of that, and that, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, Rangers fans of my age will certainly know. That's when you know that Rangers are starting to do something right. I mean, how can Rangers be doing anything right when they are so far behind? When they are so far behind Celtic, I think the thing we've been relying on for most of this season is this team of ours turns up. When you least expect it, or to be kind when they're most needed. But I think the worry for me is that it's crept into Barry's statements to a few times. He said it after St Mirren last week, and of course he's angry after the draw there. I was angry about it myself, having watched the game. But he was saying how it's easy to get up for Old Firm games. They've beat Celtic home and away. How can they beat St Mirren at Paisley, Barry? I bet it's easy to get up for Old Firm games. I think I'm worried we'll get to the point where saying that too much, we'll start to think it is easy as St Mirren at Love Street, St Mirren, at the St Mirren Park, whatever it's called, should be easy for us. Dundee at Dens Park should be easy for they're fighting relegation, but we always make it difficult for ourselves. So I'm worried that we're going to expect to rise to this occasion once too often. This could well be the time that we fail to turn up for a big game. A big opponent, even. If all the games are big games, and look, for Rangers, a big opponent, this could be the time we get a doing of someone who would give us a doing if we played like we did at Paisley last Saturday. Who would play the way we played in the first game of the season against Hearts at Tynecastle, the first time we went to Rugby Park this season, the first time we went to Dens Park this season, maybe even for a lot of the first time we went to Easter Roads, the way we played against Queen's Park in the Scottish Cup. After all, we're also up against our kind of record-breakingly bad Ibrox record. This is it. What? I've actually lost count. I think it's 6 games. 6 games without a win, 5 losses in a trot at Ibrox. That's a record. I think 4 was a record. It's now 6 games without a win if you throw in the Athletic Club draw, which is a bit of a heroic result on the night, the first leg against Athletic Club of Bilbao. But I'm a bit worried that there's only so many times that we can actually do this thing. If we do beat Celtic on Sunday, even if it's like a creditable draw, then it's a pretty straightforward task of assessing our season. There'll be more confirmation of a kind of end of season report, from which the pupils, no, that's the players and that, I've got to bring it to mummy and daddy. That's us, after the school. That's the competitive season shut at Bilbao 2 weeks ago. I dragged that. That's really bad. But basically, if the season finished when we went out the Europa League, then that's when you come in and you start writing the report of how Rangers have done this season. But I think this Old Firm game is going to have a massive bearing on it as well, a much bigger bearing than we realise. So we can deal with the big boys, but we've still got to win the big clashes with the biggest opponents. We've got it about us to win these massive games in Europe and domestically, because it's only Celtic really on the same scale as us. And no one humiliates us this season in terms of the number of unanswered goals we concede in a game. The humiliation we're taking on this season is in terms of who we're conceding goals to and how many, like St Mirren are scoring 2 goals a game against us, beating us in 2 and drawing 1. Dundee scoring 3 goals against us. Kilmarnock, I think they've scored 3 goals against us at Rugby Park, even though we beat them the second time. Even Aberdeen, despite them having a magic season, that's 2 times at Pittodrie they've put 2 goals past us. So I think after at the kind of outset of this season, it was clear this was, at best, a rebuild season. A transition season. Queen's Park was too harsh a result even for a rebuilding season, but I think finishing the top 8 of the Europa League group stage was overachieving. You shouldn't be able to, most Rangers teams would struggle to do that, but for a Rangers team in transition, Rangers team rebuilding, that was too good an achievement almost. So they balance each other out in the kind of way you'd expect in a season. It's going to be untidy because you are rebuilding. Similarly, we've had a long run up till February of being domestically all over the place away from home, but really consistently winning at home. And then latterly, we've transitioned that as well. Just before it started changing, just before Barry took over, where we were losing, just consistent losing at Ibrox, but being great away from home. I'm certainly not getting beat away from home domestically. So there's this whole thing about we need a clean, Rangers fans saying we need a team with a clear identity, and I think the clear identity is, I think that's another way of saying we want a team that wins all the time. A clear identity is Rangers win. That's that every game they win. Every single game. But I think what we've found out this season is that we need most Rangers teams to succeed on all the fronts that our supporters want them to succeed on, which is all fronts. We need to have 2 identities. We need to be able to win when we're the favourites and win when we're not the favourites. Win when the other side's expected to win, and we've been better at winning when the other side is expected to beat us, when the opposition is expected to beat us. Winning with less possession of the ball against Celtic at Ibrox. I think we'd like 30% possession or something in that game, yet we dominated them. We played Malmo away, was a really good example of it. We beat them 2-0 going on 10-0, and yet I think it was maybe 30%, 35% possession or something at most we had in that game. The problem is when we're going to have most of the ball, and I think we saw it in the course of the Hibs game. Then we drew 3 each with Hibs at Easter Road, despite having scored a couple of goals early on. That we got confused when Hibs decided to stop coming for us, when Hibs decided to let us have the ball. That's Nottingham Forest experienced the very same thing last night against Brentford. Nottingham Forest have done magnificently this season. I think they might be the only club that's won the old European Cup that has not yet appeared in the Champions League group stage, the Champions League proper, in the Champions League era. I don't think, because Aston Villa certainly put that right this season. So I think Forest might be the only club that still haven't done that. So I was quite looking forward to seeing them get in the Champions League. I hope they can still do it. Not in the Forest, but they're winning at Anfield, they're winning at Old Trafford and stuff like that. But they can't beat Brentford at home because they had more of the ball. And it's a problem that Rangers have actually had this season, which I think that's what you do. It's actually classic rebuild, the form of a team that's rebuilding, the form of a team that's in transition. What Rangers have done this season, so many Rangers fans at the beginning of the season, and I stick by it, were saying I don't mind us having a rebuild season as long as we're progressing. I don't know what they're expecting that to look like. It's like, no, I don't mind us rebuilding as long as we're winning all the time. It's basically what they were saying. It looked like we're having the setbacks that you would get when you're trying to rebuild, but we're also having the positives that will come through, signs that things are going to be okay. The problem is that Rangers have to reach certain levels even in a rebuild season. So losing to Queen's Park in the Scottish Cup, not at Ibrox is incidental, wherever we lost them, but losing to a championship side in the Scottish Cup was unacceptable, even in a rebuild season for Rangers. But I think it was much deeper rebuild than just the team itself and just the squad and having a bit of a clear out of players in the summer and maybe not getting the players in, the number of players in that we needed to replace them. A bit like the Copland Road stand, we just weren't ready, even in our new kind of untested state. I think Clement had been told probably that the chairman was going to negotiate a new contract, Clement, during the summer, because I think he'd been told that the chairman was going to step down. John Bennett was going to step down through illness. We weren't going to have a stadium, our own stadium to play out of. I mean, we didn't have a CEO, didn't have a sporting director, and I was going to have an interim chairman in to just get a chairman in who'll to get a CEO in who'll get as another chairman. It's been absolutely horrendous off the park, and obviously now I think it becomes more apparent. No money, no kit, not even a ball. I think it's become more apparent than ever that we were just setting ourselves up. I don't know if even Clement knew at the beginning of the season there was going to be a takeover. I don't know if Patrick Stewart, it didn't really start, the takeover didn't start until he came in. Was that how he got the job as chief executive, because of all his contacts with American consortiums and that through the Glazers? I don't know. I don't know what happened, but it's been quite apparent, I think, that we've actually overachieved considering the total chaos there has been infrastructurally at Rangers, and behind the scenes the directors were just trying to make sure the club was in a position, the books were in a position that the club could be sold, that the club was attractive. There was nothing to stop it being. Rangers is obviously a massively attractive investment for anybody the size of the club, but there was nothing going on financially it was going to put anybody off. So I think that's what we've been prepping for all season, was just to get the club sold. So for us to have managed to get reasonably close to the final of a European competition was absolutely unbelievable, and the real suffering has come in being unable to beat the teams below us in the league, and they're all still below us, because that's the thing. We've shown, again, classic rebuild stuff, like a good rebuild season. You're shown that you can do everything that will be required of you in a good season. I think maybe St Mirren's the exception, and we did beat them at Ibrox. But you're supposed to be able to beat everybody kind of home and away or whatever. So Aberdeen, right, we didn't win either of our games at Pittodrie, but the second one we put the reserve team out, and we went down to 10 men, and we come back with two goals down in spectacular fashion. That was kind of a moral victory, and there was a reason we didn't. But we lost the earlier game. But basically, we won twice at Tannadice. We drew one at Tynecastle, but we won one at Tynecastle quite easily. Took care of St Johnstone. Ross County gave them a 6-0 scalp and stuff like that. So we've did all the things we're supposed to do, including beating Celtic home and away. And we lost the League Cup final, but it was a really dodgy refereeing decision involved in that. We took them all the way in that game at Hampden, and the European thing we've totally overachieved. So it's like we've done everything we should have done at least once. It's just the consistency, which I think we've done really well. But if we are not going to beat Celtic, then on Sunday, and depending on how we don't beat Celtic, a draw probably fine. But if it was to be a total doing, it would give the whole thing another twist. It would put the boot in. We're all quite superstitious when it comes to these things, but statistically, Barry has consistently lost 2 goals a game. I think he's conceding 2 goals a game on average. Or it was exactly 2 goals a game, and then during the whole time he's been interim manager, this is his 12th game it's going to be now, I think, as interim manager, and we lost 2 goals at Kilmarnock, lost 2 goals at home to Motherwell, and then we only lost 1 goal over in Istanbul, of all places, Kadikoy playing Fenerbahce. We win 3-1 that night, so it's almost like that's why Dundee scored 3 goals against us. We beat Dundee up at Dens Park in the league, but it had to be 3 to make up for the fact that we'd come off the exactly 2 goals a game conceded average. Well, we come off it again when we, obviously we lost 2, conceded 2 goals to St Mirren the other week, but we conceded 2 goals in Bilbao and 2 goals at home to Fenerbahce, but we drew 0-0 with Athletic Club at Ibrox. That would mean we need to concede 4, doesn't it? That means we need to lose 4 goals to somebody. Celtic will be bang up for scoring 4 goals on Sunday if they possibly can. I'm always doing heat. This is the last big game of the season, folks, so I'm going a bit OTT as usual here. I promise you all the pods will be short from now till the end of the season. You deserve a rest. Heat. I haven't mentioned Heat for a while. I usually mention Heat in the pods. 1995 LA crime saga by Michael Mann. And I haven't mentioned, I think, because Val Kilmer passed away, we really dealt deeply with the Val Kilmer thing, his role in the movie Heat. But of course, it's my favourite Val Kilmer role, so it's a disrespect to him to not talk about the movie. But I'm always comparing various games and various moments in Rangers' life to various scenes in Heat. And this one, I think, the only thing I come up with here is the deleted scenes. the deleted scenes of Heat, the extras. Now, you young folk, you youngsters, you can get the deleted scenes from Heat on YouTube. Just look up Heat deleted scenes, and up they'll come. I think they're 8 minutes, 10 minutes long. It'll give you the different scenes. I had to wait. The old HOAS, HOAS, HO, Heat original audience. We had to wait 10 years after it came out. Before there was the basic video came out like a year or so after it had been at the cinema, and then there was the DVD came out that you could buy, but there was nothing on it. It was just the film, and that was it. There was no extras. We had to wait 10 years. That was a 10-year anniversary DVD, and we're still talking ancient history for anybody who's living on streaming platforms and what have you. I think I went to Tower Records to get the 10-year anniversary DVD of it, which I've still got, and I'd be straight into the extras. We'd watch the film to death, just get the extras on and see what's happening. And on there was the deleted scenes, and because they don't go through the production, the post-production process, the footage is grainy. And the music's, if there's any music involved, it's kind of tinny. So they're kind of amateurish, but yet it's still the same actors, and it's Michael Mann directing, it's the same script and what have you. So the quality is still there, but it's they tell you stuff maybe you don't want to know. There's maybe too much information in them. You can see why they were deleted, the scenes. There's various stuff. I don't know if you like when Vincent Hanna, Al Pacino's character, when he arrives at the scene of the truck heist right at the start of the film, and he's talking to the guys in his team, and he's saying, right, what if who's moving the bearer bonds? Who's going to be fencing the bearer bonds that get stolen from the truck? So they want to talk about that. He's talking to I think it's McKelty Williamson and his team about what criminal informant, what informants they're going to talk to. You'll take we'll take Cusimano and Tarina. You'll take Goldstein and Alfara, says to a couple of other guys. So him and McKelty Williamson go to. You see him going to Farina Goldstein. Oh God, what's his Albert Tarina, who's played by Ricky Harris, the late Ricky Harris. He died as well at a relatively young age. Ricky Harris and his brother Richie, who's played by Tone Loc. Wild thing, Tone Loc. You see the scene where they meet. He meets them in a club, and they eventually get the information on Michael Chirito, because Tone Loc's character, Richard Tarina, was in jail. He was in the same prison cell as Thing. But you go to see Cusimano. This guy that plays Cusimano, he's like a pawn guy. There's a pawn shop and bail bondsman, all that kind of stuff. But he's also a criminal informant, so they want him to find out find out who's selling the bearer bonds or who's putting them on the street, and blah blah blah. But this guy, that's his only scene, and it's deleted. That guy nobody will ever know he was in Heat, except you if you watch the deleted scenes. It's quite a good wee scene, that one. That's quite interesting. But you get the bit where it's been deleted from the film, where Richard Tarina, played by Tone Loc, is talking about Chirito. Michael Chirito. He calls everybody slick. That's how they managed to get into. They managed to find Neil's team, Neil's crew, and he said there's a guy who was giving him a hard time in the jail, and he comes up to him in the showers and starts having a go at him, and Slick. He gets his shank out and just stabs the guy 20-30 times and just carries on washing his hair. And you're like, oh right, that's. I knew Michael would be a hard case. I knew he obviously did time. They all did time, but I didn't really want to know about that kind of stuff. I felt as if it was a bit kind of grimy, obviously. So I can see why it was deleted. You also get the bit where Tom Sizemore playing Michael Chirito buys the hockey masks. He buys the hockey masks for the armed robbery on the security truck at the beginning, and he goes into it's like a toy store, and he gets a dog's house for his 2 wee lassies as well while he's there. And the woman in the till's going, is the hockey season starting early this year? And he's like, aye, hockey season starting early this year. He's got the hockey mask while buying stuff for his wee lassies. And like, that's fair. But he goes home, and then his wife, he just sits down and he gives the dog's house to the wee lassies. And he's like, what about that? He's like, and they're like, oh, that's great, Dad, that's great. And he just sits there and he's kind of looking at them while they're playing. And he just got this faraway look in his eyes. And his wife, who's Elaine, Elaine will take good care of you, T-bonds, you get stuff put away, who's played by Bob Dylan's daughter-in-law. It's Alison Trailer, I think. she's like, "You all right? You okay?" And he's like, "Aye, aye." You're thinking, what's he thinking about? Is he thinking about shanking that guy in the joint? Is he thinking about the action is the juice? He doesn't even want to be, hating these wee lassies. He just wants to be shooting folk and stuff like that. That's quite... So the whole point for me is these are deleted scenes because I think these are the last two Old Firm derbies are the scenes that Celtic want to delete from the final cut of their movie of 2024-2025, and we want to make this another deleted scene for Celtic. For us as well, we don't say that the graininess of these scenes are not finished off properly, the music's still kind of tinny, the whole post-production thing's not been done on them. We don't enjoy beating Celtic in a season like this as much as we enjoy beating them when it leads to us winning the league title. So it's a bit kind of directors, a bit kind of deleted scene for us as well, but it's very, very important that we get under Celtic's skin, we keep it in. It's for the records as well. The kind of stuff that gets thrown in your face as a Rangers fan. People come, if you're working with Celtic fans, etc. We've won the league again, blah blah blah. It gives you a wee kind of a quick response in your quill. You can just flip it out and fire it right into their faces. Just saying, but you can't beat us. You can't beat us though. We're getting the kind of stuff that was getting thrown in our face when we come back into top flight and we just couldn't beat Celtic. The stuff that was getting thrown in our face. This, Clement is really good against everybody else, but he can't beat Celtic. And he did, and he got sacked. But it just gives us something to make life a bit easier for ourselves as Rangers supporters. But it gives us a little wedge that we can tap away at next season if suddenly it becomes we win the first Old Firm game of the season, which will be back at Ibrox next season. Oh, that's 4 games that Brendan Rodgers hasn't won against Rangers, and Celtic fans will not be pleased about that, and suddenly we'll see why he was coming out with all that kind of underhand crap. Today on Sky Sports, are the players on holiday now? That's a big question. It would just be like us, just be like the team this season that we, the way the kind of season's been kind of back to front. We can take it to Manchester United. We can go and stuff a League One side at home, but we're getting put out of the Scottish Cup by Queen's Park, and we're really struggling against St Mirren. It would just be like them to go on holiday after they've come back for Spain, back to front the way everybody else does it. You want to remember to tell your grandkids that the injury time, the fact that Manchester United only they beat us in injury time at Old Trafford after Cyril Dessers scored one of the goals of our history, that was just a couple of weeks before Queen's Park put us out the Scottish Cup at Ibrox. So, folks, I'm sorry to rant and rave. There's a lot needing to be said, but no money, no kit, not even a ball. We've actually done all right. I know new managers, new players, new owners. It's a conversation for another day. I think Sunday is no kind of bearing on the destination of the title or the Champions League spots, but it can, as I say, drive that little wedge of doubt into Rodgers' reign with the Celtic support for us to exploit it more next season. So I don't want to go on too much. The takeover stuff is going to be all the talk, I think, from Monday onwards. But we have actually done all right, I think, this season when you take all the kind of summer chaos into account, the summer of 2024, but just ensure we don't go into Sunday already luxuriating in the summer of 2025. The holidays are on hold at Rangers. Start cruising on Monday and not a day sooner.